What's going on, everybody? Gem Mint here, and today we're going to count down the top 10 best comic books of the week with my co-host, Rockin Robbie.
What's up, Jim? I'm so excited to be here. And in fact, when I saw the giant stack that you had, that's a Robbie type stack. And I'm super excited to see what your top 10 is. And one more again, Station!
I was definitely thinking the same thing when I had that huge stack. I'm like, how does Robbie do this every week? But we managed to get through it, and I picked out my favorite top 10s. Robbie's got his favorite. We're going to jump into it now. Just make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a video.
All right, Geminites and PCP Army, just so you know, in case you didn't, this is full-on spoilers for the rest of the video. All right, we're switching things up this week, and I'm going to go first. My number 10 is Batman. The Adventures Continue, Season 2, Number 1. I love this series. Of course, I loved Batman the Animated Series, and if you love that series, this is a must-read because you got Paul Dini, you got Alan Burnett, you got the writers, some of the best writers of that animated series, bringing it back, filling in some gaps, bringing in new characters and concepts that weren't even around at the time, like the Court of Owls. That's what they're focusing on this one. So if you love the Court of Owls and you love Batman the Animated Series and you always wanted to see those two kind of collide, that's what this does. Ty Templeton is the artist. He's been doing these animated Batman books for like 2 decades now. He's a veteran. He knows what he does. This looks, feels, and has the exact same nuance and everything from Batman the Animated Series, and it's a worthy follow-up.
Yeah, for sure. I dug this issue. It's actually a little bit higher on my list, so I'll speak on it when we get there. For my number 10, I chose Hellions 12, and I was surprised. I thought I was going to hate the Hellfire Gala. I saw all the pictures online. Yeah, everybody's dressed up. I get it. But, you know, reading the 2 issues out of the 3 X-Men books this week, I really enjoyed both of them, but I put Hellions a little bit higher. I loved how half of the Hellions weren't even invited to the gala, but they crashed the party anyway. And I love that they crashed the party, and it's like, this is why you weren't invited. Like, you're getting into fights, you're running into your ex-girlfriends. I don't know, I just thought it was a super fun issue. I love anytime you get Mr. Sinister with his dialogue, and even the shots they kind of take at him, like, they alluded to he would take himself as his own date or something like that. I don't know. I just thought it was hilarious. Psylocke kind of slayed as well, and I just thought it was a fun issue.
Yeah, Hellions definitely didn't get invited to the Hellfire Gala, but definitely invited to the top 10. They're a little bit higher on my list.
All right, that brings me to my number 9, and I went with Justice League issue 62 by Brian Michael Bendis. This was kind of one of those things where I'm digging this arc. This wasn't the strongest issue in the arc so far, but I still liked it. It was still strong enough to make my top 10. So we figure out that Flash didn't carry the 2 when he used mathematics to send the Justice League to Naomi's homeworld. And I guess they're in this kind of different type of Earth where their molecules and atoms aren't reacting the way that they would normally, and that's why you're having Superman's not able to control his eyesight, Black Adam's getting his ass kicked, but then you have other characters like Hawkgirl who's like flourishing there. Anyway, the main character, Brutus, he's the champion of this world, and he wants to invade Earth and inhabit Earth since their planet was destroyed by Zambadu. So he's the big bad who kind of just messed everything up on this planet. I'm really digging it. I like how powerful these guys are. He's able to go toe-to-toe with Justice League characters. Again, some of them are in their weakened state, but I just thought it was big, fun, flashy superhero fun.
You know, Justice League didn't make my top 10, but I did think it was a rather decent book, mostly because of the Rom v. Justice League Dark story, which I know you're not digging. That's my favorite part of the book, and you're loving the Bendis stuff. It's fun, and it's cool, but I've been reading Bendis for like over 20 years right now, and it's starting to feel like the same thing over and over. People used to tell me that 10 years ago, and I defended him, but right now, his Justice League is feeling very much like his early Avengers book. My number 9 is Basilisk, number 1 from Boom Studios. This is a new one from Cullen Bunn. I thought it was pretty solid. The only issue I had with this issue was that it didn't really deliver a full-on job of an issue number 1. I'm expecting character introductions. I'm expecting it to completely hook me by the end. In this one, I had to reread the solicitations to understand a little bit further what was going on. It's about this group of supervillains in a way, right? They all have these powers. They all don't do good things with them, and then one of them decides to break away from the group. And then one of her former, lovers or something of a victim shows up, and now she's thrown back into it, and she's going to have to go against her own people. It's kind of like, what if the Legion of Doom lost one of their soldiers, and then that soldier went against the Legion of Doom, but it just wasn't clear enough. But that being said, the execution was great. The script, the way it flowed, it had a great pace. The artwork was super fire by Jonas Scharf. I actually liked the book. I just wish it delivered a little bit more punch in the first issue.
Yeah, I hear you, Robbie. This one's a little higher on my list, so I'll give my thoughts when we get there.
For number 8, I have Hollow Heart, number 4 from Vault Comics. I've been loving this story. It's about this creature named L. L is just a collection of organs and fluids in like a mechanical suit, right? And L lives this tortured existence in this facility, right? And in this facility is a worker who has kind of taken some compassion and has helped L escape. And now he's trying to teach Elle kind of like how to be alive, how to experience joy and pleasure. But in this issue, it starts going very sour. This book has a haunting feel. This book, there's something about it that's really hard to describe, but it's haunting in a very personal and tragic kind of way. It's by Paul Allure and Paul Tucker, and there's a lot of heart to this book. There's a lot of subtlety, and it's just blowing me away.
You know what? I'm not reading that one. I have been trying to pick up more titles from Vault, but that one just slipped past by me. For my number 8, I went with Swamp Thing issue 4, written by one of Robbie's favorites, Ram V, and it's definitely the deepest superhero story out right now. Just like the creators before him, just like the Alan Moores and Scott Snyders, you're in the green, you can feel the energy of the green, and we're kind of learning more about it through interactions with the past Swamp Thing, Alec Holland, as well as our main new character's girlfriend, who's in the green talking with another avatar of the green, another elemental, and kind of foreshadowing what happens at the end of this issue, where it's like Swamp Thing's always going to be looked at as a monster, even though when you read Swamp Thing, you know that's the furthest from the truth. And when the girlfriend finally comes to, they finally get out of the green, she thinks it was all a dream, and she's like, oh man, I saw a monster in my dream. So it's like our main character knows, you know, what was said is true. He's always going to be a monster to humans.
Yeah, like you said, I love Swamp Thing. I love Ram V, so this is obviously way higher on my list. I'll save my thoughts till then.
So then we're going to move into number 7. I went with Crime Syndicate. This is issue 4 out of 6, and I love Crime Syndicate. I love how evil Ultraman and Superwoman are, and the fact that it seems like they're going to hook up so that he can give her an heir, and they both do it in such a sinister way. And then you have the Emerald Knight. You have John Stewart, who's the Green Lantern of Earth 3. The Guardians of Oa are super evil, and they destroy planets, especially Sinestro's homeworld. So it's like Sinestro, who's a bad guy, is a good guy in this world, and he's trying to get John Stewart to overcome the influence of the Emerald Ring and turn over to the dark side, which is actually the good side in this universe.
Bruh, I don't even know how you like this book. I cannot stand Crime Syndicate. This book pisses me off, okay? Like, I've read so much about the Crime Syndicate, the Earth 2 book by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely, the old school stuff, the Jeff Johns stuff from Forever Evil, and I love all of those interpretations so much more than this. This feels, to me, like a 90s extreme version of the Crime Syndicate. That being said, it's nice to see Power Ring be John Stewart in this new iteration, but at the same time, I've seen a little bit more excitement, a little bit more interesting concepts, but yo, you do you, Jim. I just don't believe it.
Well, me then.
No, man, not at all, man. Much respect, Station, and all that jazz. You're worth it. Anyway, my number 7 is Batman 109. I am loving, adoring, if you will, this run by James Tynion. The artwork by Jorge Jimenez always just shocks me. New, interesting perspectives, dynamic coloring. There are backgrounds. Here's something that we don't even talk about too much, but just notice how many comic books you read, superhero comics, with no backgrounds, or very limited backgrounds. Look at the backgrounds on this book. What Jorge Jimenez and Tomu Mori on the coloring can do artistically on this book is just miles above what a lot of other people are doing in mainstream superhero comics. That being said, Tynion's also just writing a really great Batman story, introducing new characters. Ghostmaker in the backup story, I could give two shits about it, to be honest with you. I don't even care about that story. But his interaction with Harley Quinn was fire. I love it. I can't tell if you're trying to kill me or hit on me. Well, I haven't quite decided yet. He is like a player, James Bond, Phantom X type, and I think he fits in really well, and I cannot wait to see the inevitable disagreement between Bruce and Ghostmaker. But that being said, they're leading into Fear State, which is kind of leading looking into the possible reality of the Magistrate dominating Gotham. We see the first battle of Peacekeeper 1 and Batman. Lots of action, lots of intrigue, lots of setup, and great artwork. This is what superhero comic books is all about.
You know what? This is higher on my list, but I don't know if you really left much for me to talk about, but I'll give my thoughts when we get there.
I know you can pull it out. Don't worry, Gem. For my number 6, though, I've got Hellions number 12. You've already mentioned this one. Definitely invited to our top 10 because this has low-key become one of my favorite X titles on shelves right now, because it doesn't feel the need to fit in too much with what Hickman's trying to do or what they're trying to do, say, over at Excalibur, or what they're doing at X Factor, or what they're doing on Marauders. And even though it's tied into this whole Hellfire Gala, which me personally, I'm kind of iffy on it because it seems like a weird kind of non-event. What's up with Marvel doing these non-events all of a sudden? They're events, but they're not events. You don't need to get everything, but we're going to kind of make you feel like you need to get anything. Hellions was awesome. Like you said, they don't get invited. They show up, they crash the party. I have never cared about these characters outside of Psylocke and Sinister to a point, and of course Havoc. I have never cared about any of these other characters, but now I do. Like, I can't get enough of them. I'm like, less Sinister, less Psylocke, less Havoc. How about more Orphan Maker? How about more Nanny? Like, I love this stuff. Nanny getting drunk and trying to kill Sinister, that was so freaking awesome. And I'm becoming so much of a Sinister fan because of this book. I really think that Zeb Wells and company are doing a hell of a job with this, of making a next book that's flying under of a lot of people's radars because they're just blanket getting rid of all the X titles. But Hellions is not just worth it, it's a must read.
Yeah, I think that this book is worth it just for the Sinister dialogue alone. My number 6 is a book that you mentioned earlier from Boom Studios, Basilisk by Cullen Bunn. I feel like this has potential to be Cullen Bunn's magnum opus. He's done tie-in stuff with Marvel. He's done or is doing Shadow Man over on Valiant, but I feel like this one just has a lot of potential. It's like a dark people with powers that can do terrible things. One of the people, like Robbie mentioned, she's trying to break away from her old crew, and it seems like they're catching up to her and may have found her by the end of this issue. Her powers are pretty epic, man. Her eyes, this glowing blue light that blinds the whole room, it causes everybody else's eyes to bleed and they can't see anymore. Causes her eyes to bleed a little bit as well, and it just has that superhero flavor that I like with a little bit of horror involved.
You know, Cullen Bunn has been one of the most consistent and hardworking creators in the industry for over 10 years now, and I'm super excited to see him have a book that hits a marquee level like this. In fact, it's Cullen Bunn's biggest debut to date.
And speaking of big debuts, my number 5 is a new number 1 from Aftershock called Out of Body. I thought this was a super fun issue. It's interesting. It's got you invested. You want to know what's going to happen. We know that this guy who is a therapist, he was attacked by somebody, but he can't really figure out while he's in his comatose state. He can't think of who would want to physically harm him. At the same time, we have this girl who's able to talk to the dead. She can feel his spirit. She can kind of see that somebody's in need. Somebody's on the cusp of life and death. And even though she's paid $10 from her mother found a client for her, she's not even interested in that. She just wants to figure out what's going on with this soul that she feels crying out to her. Now, this is called Out of Body. So we do get an out of body experience here where his soul rises from his body and he sees all these other souls in the sky. And it seems like there's somebody out there who wants to harvest these souls.
Your soul is mine.
Out of Body was a fantastic debut. It's coming up very quickly on my list. But first, my number 5 is Firepower number 12. It's the end of the second arc in single issues, the third arc in total, right? But I loved it. The only disappointment I had is that this is a massive double-sized issue. It's $1 more. It's got like 12 different covers, and that's exciting. So I was expecting, especially after the last couple issues, a big epic action fest. Oh, you get like such a brief ending to all the action, and the rest of it was like this nice, well-paced out resolution. This is something that Robert Kirkman, the writer, is wowing me with this book. So many of his books, like Walking Dead or even Invincible, they to me have a lot of people just talking. A lot, right? And in Firepower, the action, the show is over the tell. And I think that Robert Kirkman is growing as a creator because of it. Of course, he's working with Chris Samney and Matt Wilson, two of the absolute best in the industry, especially at making a book kinetic and charged. I love this book. Like you said in your review video, this book is extra size, but it reads just as quickly. That's because I think the script is handled so well, and he lets the art carry so much of the weight and burden of the story. But when you got an artist like Chris Samney, you can do that and get away with it.
Yeah, I like Firepower. It didn't make my top 10. And yeah, I mentioned in my video that every issue, even the double size, reads really fast. It does let the artwork handle the majority of the load. I also do feel it's so different from like Invincible or Walking Dead in the sense that how many characters actually have dialogue in this book? I mean, 4 or 5? It doesn't feel like there's enough connection to the characters for me, except for I like how Owen, with his old flame, the girl that he thought died when he left the temple, she shows that she's alive still, and he's like, damn, it's messing with him. He's got a new life, he's got a new family, but his past has really come back to haunt him here, and he's definitely conflicted.
Yeah, Kirkman is definitely hitting that nuance of the emotions of the characters in this, and I think that's something that he's stretching really, really well at right now in Firepower. For my number 4, though, it's Out of Body number 1. I loved this book. It's by Pete Milligan. Pete Milligan is a veteran in this industry. He's done so many great books that I love. Shade the Changing Man, Enigma, X-Force and Ecstatics with Mike Allred. So I was really excited to check this one out. And you've already described it a little bit. Of course, the dude's in a coma, but he's completely aware. That is a very unnerving and unsettling thought. The dude is laying there and he can hear everything, and he's completely conscious of it, right? And he's trying to piece together the mystery of who attacked him. So it's the dude who got attacked, now he's in a coma, and he is now going to try to solve the mystery of who came after him. So that's incredibly intriguing and exciting. But then you add in the element of psychedelics. And if you know me, I like my psychedelics. And I love the idea that he used to do therapy with psychedelics. His partner, she comes in and she's like, yo, I don't know if you need to find your way to the afterlife, or if you need to find your way back to your body, but I'm going to shoot you filled with some like LSD or psilocybin or something, right? And he just starts tripping. The problem is when he's done tripping, he's now outside of his body, and he's like Doctor Strange in this astral form. And like you said, there's a young woman out there who's got psychic abilities. She can feel that there's something going on. You got the Shang Tsung character trying to suck souls away. It was a really incredible debut that was very well paced, a great introduction to the concept and the characters, a great hook at the end, and it's got artwork by Inaki Miranda, who, of course, was the artist of the fan favorite We Live. This book from Aftershock was super awesome.
Definitely agree. That was a dope book. Number 4 is a book that you had lower on your list, but I picked Batman The Adventures Continues, Season 2, Issue 1, and I like how they're doing seasons like it's the show. Yeah, if you like Batman the Animated Series and you want to see them tackle newer stories, newer characters, the Court of the Owls, even them adapting Deadman, I thought was super slick. And it really read like the cartoon. It's not too dense, it's not too deep. It kind of plays out like the way that Deadman gets involved. It's cartoonish, but it's Batman the Animated Series cartoon, and I thought it was super dope.
Yo, I even forgot Deadman was in there, and that's something that I always wanted in the animated series and we never got, was Deadman, so it's really cool to see him show up.
Moving on to number 3, I went with Batman Catwoman issue 5, and I thought this was a dope issue. I really like what's going on here, and I'm starting to see how Tom King loves playing with different timelines. He's like the Quentin Tarantino of comic book writers. I definitely am digging the whole old woman Catwoman and how she killed the Joker, so old woman Harley comes through, she's busting in, she's pissed off. I'm digging all that aspect. I like the vulnerable side of Catwoman of her getting drunk in the beginning and Batman and I'm gonna go steal something, and she's all drunk and sloppy and tries to break into this building and falls and crashes, and Batman has to save her like Superman holding Supergirl Crisis on Infinite Earth style. And then you have the other one with the Mask of the Phantasm, who is killing Joker henchmen, and that guy had a dope ass body tattoo. I was like, that's kind of sick. And Catwoman kind of being the anti-hero, not really good, not really bad, in the background, like not stopping her as she's torturing this guy. It was a solid issue. A lot of times with Tom King books, around this time, I'm like, okay, what's going on? But I'm following along and I'm loving it.
See, usually I'm not like that with Tom King books, but I am right now. I read this book and I was like, what the hell's going on? And the problem is this, is that Tom King loves to play with structure, as you pointed out. And it's something I think he can do very, very well. But this book's been a bit late. And so I've read a lot in between, so have you. And I was just kind of like, I'm losing the focus of these 3 stories. Like, I think that it's still working, and I think it will iron itself out if I just went back and reread 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I also did feel like the artwork was a bit rushed, a bit sloppy in this one. Clay Mann usually gives us very clean lines, very refined artistic style. But like in this one, at times, especially the Harley Quinn bits, it just felt a bit just rushed. And I feel like that is hurting this book. The fact that it's been a little bit late. He's got these 3 intricate different stories going on. Great work being done with Selena Kyle. In fact, some of the best work in a while. Of course, Ron V's doing some great work too.
Yeah, that's true. Now that I think about it, some of the Harley Quinn lines were a little rough, but I think he did a bang-up job on Catwoman.
Oh, for sure. For my number 3, I've got a book from Scout Comics. It's By the Horns, number 2. This book blows me away. It's been a while since the first issue, but I fell right into this one. Here's the concept of the story, Jim. It's about this woman whose lover was mauled to death, killed by unicorns, right? So now she has dedicated her life to hunting and killing unicorns. So it's this like fantasy quest with a little bit of a silly context there and concept, but it actually works. It takes itself very seriously, but I'm not the biggest fantasy fan, but it doesn't fall into those typical fantasy trappings that kind of turn me off. This book feels fresh. It's got amazing artwork. The character designs are spot on. The world building is there. And like I said, this is a woman, this is a book about a chick who's hunting down a unicorn because unicorns killed her lover. Like, you'd be crazy. If someone told me that on paper, I'd be like, that's the dumbest idea ever. But it is definitely working. And if you find Scout Comics in your shop, check out By the Horns.
But it sounds really interesting because if you think about it, it's got to be hard to even find a unicorn, let alone hunt one and kill one.
Yes, and that leads to much of the crazy complexity that happens in the story. It's got wild ideas. One of the characters introduced in this one is just a giant eyeball that floats around and talks shit. I mean, that's my kind of book. For my number 2, we're going to go into one that you have already mentioned. It's The Swamp Thing, number 4, by Ron V. It's no secret that I am a huge fan of Ron V, and I think that what he is doing is such a worthy successor to all of the amazing Swamp Thing runs that we've had before. This is Swamp Thing in the green. This is the moment where he finally makes the connection. Now, this is a new character, and we see this a lot. This is kind of a repeated theme that we get in a lot of different Swamp Thing runs, but this is a new Swamp Thing, a first time connecting to the green, and I love those concepts. The artwork by Mike Perkins and Mike Spicer is just brilliant, amazing, complex layouts that feel organic. They feel real. They feel like they grew and they weren't drafted and drawn. I love this book. There's not much I can say about this book that I haven't already. It's just miles above any other DC or Marvel book, like you said. I just love this book. Superheroes, horror, all combined together with the amazing vision of Ron V and incredible artwork.
Yeah, Swamp Thing has always been on another level. When he first appeared in House of Secrets, when Alan Moore took over, and now it's like you said, everything else on the shelf is your traditional superhero book or it's a dope indie. But Swamp Thing plays like a different role, man. It's more like of an artsy type of comic. It's deeper, like what I said earlier. But anyway, my number 2, I'm going to go into Batman 109. This was lower on your list. I thought it was super dope. I like the payoff that we're getting from having invested in Red Future State. We wanted to see the beginning, especially because I believe both me and you, our favorite aspect was the Magistrate and Gotham and Peacekeepers and all these things, or Peacemakers. So it was super dope to kind of see how this happened. How did Scarecrow and A-Day play a part in creating so much fear that Gotham allowed this to happen and allowed the Magistrate to rise into power? And then you had the Ghostmaker stuff. I haven't really been the biggest fan of Ghostmaker. Definitely get heavy Phantom X vibes, but I loved the interaction with him and Harley Quinn. And like you said, when she says, "Are you going to fight me or are you trying to bang me?" And I was kind of like, I'm down to see either one. I thought it was super fun. I can't see him playing well with Bruce any much longer, especially like he even takes shots at Bruce with his like makeshift bat caves, but he's still got the penthouse ghost keeper pad and he's trying to keep up with the Batmobile with his Ghostmobile. I don't know. It was just super fun. George Jimenez artwork, amazing. Well, you can't ask for much more in a superhero comic book, and he really delivers. But let's get off the superhero comic books. Let's get into my number 1, which, Robbie, I believe this is your number 1 as well. We're talking about The Nice House on the Lake by James Tynion IV.
Yeah, Jim, it was my number 1 as well. By far the best book on the shelves for me this week.
I didn't read the solicit for this. I had no idea what to expect, and I liked every aspect of it. I liked the beginning, this kind of like social butterfly and kind of hanging out at bars and just laughing and having a good time with friends, not really knowing anybody too much on a personal level. Kind of sees this guy on a couple of occasions, and he finally says something to her. And what I I took as his pickup line. Hey, how do you think the world's going to end? I was like, that's a pretty good line. That's going to get the conversation started.
Yeah, I thought that was a good pickup line too. In fact, if I was single, I was going to use that at the bar next week, right? And I love that this builds itself up, introducing the characters through these familiar social circumstances. We all have different circles of friends, and we have some that overlap and some that don't. And it was really interesting the way that he involves the characters in just the mundane, because this book very quickly gets out of the mundane into the surreal.
Robbie, do you know what happens when you have your group A friends that meet your group B friends? Worlds collide. That's a Seinfeld reference. I'm very disappointed in you. But yeah, anyway, so this is these different group of people that kind of know each other, and then we get introduced to everybody as they're invited by this guy. What's his name? Wilson?
I think his name is Walter, but right now I'm just torn up that I missed the Seinfeld reference. So I just bear with me.
I knew it was a W name. So he invited these 12 people, right? And it's giving us little backgrounds on who they are, what they are, when did he meet them, when did he choose them. So at first I was kind of reading through that pretty quickly, and then I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is pretty important. Let me really take the time to see the little biography on all these characters. And what did he choose them for? To bring them to a nice getaway? There's got to be something more here. And he gives them all a name, like you're the artist, you're the chef, you're the whatever, and little symbols. And then they get invited to this house, and it's like a uber millionaire type of house on the lake. It's a super nice house on the lake. They're a little skeptical. Like, they're all like, I don't think I'm even good enough to be here.
Yeah, it's almost like too good to be true, right? This random dude. And because Walter has a connection to more of these other characters that he's invited than the main character. She doesn't really quite get it. She's had like a passing relationship with him. Like, they've talked here and there. She thought that he was picking up on her, but it just got weird, you know, and like always talking about different ways that the world could end. They invite him to this house. Is it too good to be true? Well, yeah, because you find out that as they show up, and I love that this has given me Cabin of the Woods kind of vibes. Like, they all fit an archetype for this dude. Like you said, the writer, the artist, the blah, 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 the blah, 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 right? And then they show up, and he shows up, and he's like, oh, by the way, the world just ended. Y'all are the only ones left, and I'll be back every so often to check on you, but enjoy. I just thought you guys were great. It almost is like he's trying to end the world, rebuild society, and there's a bigger developing mystery here. Did he end the world? Did the people he's involved with end the world? Did he just know this was coming? Is he a prophet? Is he trying to restart humanity? Why? What's going on? This book is so deceptively simple. It feels very down to earth, day in the life, average type, people. It's almost like you're reading a comic book version of Friends for a while, right? And then all of a sudden it takes this turn and it gets dark, it gets twisted. This book was so perfectly done for an issue number 1. This introduced the characters, it introduced the concept, and it hooked us at the end. And it did it flawlessly. The artwork, let's talk about this. Alvaro Martinez Bueno, the artwork. Now, James Tynion's worked with him on Detective Comics, on Justice League Dark, but this was levels above. Those compositions, that double-page spread, the architecture of the house, the landscape of the land around it, the character work, the figure work, the line work, it's all so meticulously crafted, as well as the script. This was a pitch-perfect issue number 1, bruh.
Yeah, in my mind, he's an alien. Like, they're seeing on social media, even though service is kind of bad, that cities are burning, people's skin is coming off their face, and they're saying stuff like, I can pull my skin off and it doesn't hurt. Like, skin's coming off my fingers as I'm texting this. So there's some kind of weird supernatural way that the world's ending. And this guy, when they confront him, and he doesn't even hide it. He's like, oh yeah, the world's ending and you're the last 12 people on the planet and you guys are great. There's steaks in the fridge or whatever, and somebody goes to attack him, but like their attack kind of goes through him almost like he's a hologram, but like a physical, some kind of alien extraterrestrial shit's going on. I don't know. It was weird, like a ghost type alien type of creature. This was hook, line, and sinker. There's no way you could read this issue and not read issue 2.
I mean, it was just ballin'. It was just completely the perfect package, like you said, right? And you're right. I forgot almost that they were trying to get him, and like it just went right through him. Like, what's going on? Is he a hologram? Is he an alien? Maybe there's some alien stuff going on. Who knows? I like how meticulous the world building is too. Not only has he created an archetype for each of these people, they have their own symbol. We get all this information, and it's like there's a plan for this, and maybe they are aliens, and it's kind of like a a We Live situation where they're like, well, the world's going to end, so we just want, a representation of all of humanity to either keep in a museum or to help, repopulate the earth. But it was a great mystery, and the first issue gives you a story. It introduces you to these characters. You know these. They're relatable. They're distinguishable from one another. They all speak different. They all act different. They all have a different vibe attached to them. And then when you get to the end, like, everybody's going to want to come back to issue number 2 to see what the hell's going on in this one.
Yeah, and I feel like that's why this is our number 1. Cullen's book was great. It was a number 1 with Basilisk, but I don't think it did as good of a job of character building in just one issue. And remember, all those little synopsises were like, met them in the New York circle, met them in the high school circle 18 years ago, chose them 16 years ago. Some people he chose right away. Some people he chose years later. So I'm really interested to see where that goes. But you guys got to let us know what your favorites were this week. Leave a comment down below. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss a video. And hit the like if you enjoyed it. Robbie, it's been a pleasure. Why don't you tell them where they can find you and what you got going on?
It's always a pleasure, Jim. Thank you so much. I love talking comics with anybody, in particular you, my friend. You can find us over at Pop Culture Philosophers. And if you're on Facebook, join the PCP Army, because that's the official Pop Culture Philosophers Facebook group. We do lots of fun things on our channel, like movie reviews every Friday night, weekly comic book reviews on Tuesday night, getting you ready for Wednesday morning, weekly pop culture wrap-ups, and Rockin Robbie Live will return after a 2-week hiatus this Sunday night, 7 p.m. Central Time. It's the best time on Sunday nights on YouTube.
I need my Rockin Robbie fix. Don't go anywhere, guys. Check out last week's Top 10 Comics of the Week and my new comic book day reviews as well. You stay minty fresh. Peace.